listening can really make or break our ability to plan a successful event.
For sure. And I'm sure that your event planners have had the experience where someone doesn't listen and all of a sudden their spidey sense goes up and they're like, we're going to miss some stuff with this event because we really haven't exchanged the information that we need to exchange. Listeners should know is emotions are contagious. Research has proven this out. So I can infect you with whatever emotion that I have. You can lose trust in a second. It's weird that way. It takes forever to build up and you can lose it in just a moment.
Hi, Evan Roth. Thank you for joining us today on Event Planner Confessions.
Pleasure to be here. I've always wondered what this is going to be like, so I'm happy to be here and experience it.
What's really fun about having you here specifically for me is that you are actually my business coach. And many, many moons ago, I said to you, I really want to do a podcast. This is something I'm really excited about. And you even helped me articulate that internally to get it to where it is today. And so to fast forward as we're now in season 3 of Event Planner Confessions, to finally have you on the show is very exciting. So thank you.
It does my heart good that it came to fruition.
Wonderful. Well, we talk about a lot of things as I've sort of grown through my leadership career, but you've also done a lot of coaching for people at all different stages of their career. And I think there's some different commonalities and threads that are just important as you are, whether you're an emerging leader or a experienced leader, they're just so important to help in your leadership journey. And I want to take some time today to talk about leadership and really talk about some of the behaviors that you need to exhibit to get what you want out of your goals and objectives. So, something that is so important that all of our listeners and viewers here are aware of is listening. So you talk a lot about active listening. Can you dive a little bit deeper into what active listening even means? Because I think sometimes we're so focused on what we're going to say that we forget to listen to what is responded to what we say.
That's exactly right. There are so many examples of bad listening that I think we can almost think of the opposite more often than we can think of what really, really good, appropriate active listening is. So, when we're cutting each other off or when we're absolutely absorbed in what we're going to say to what they have, none of that really works. So effective listening is literally being in someone else's presence, and you're going to get signals that are not only someone's voice, but do they seem to be comfortable? Do we seem to be connected? Is it psychologically safe to share what we're going to do? An interesting fact is much of communication is nonverbal in its nature. So it could be the tone in which we deliver something. It could be the body movements. You see someone wince or you see someone roll their eyes. Wow, that just shuts off the listening. What I love about effective listening is it's probably the most honorable thing you can do with another person to respect and honor them. To truly just hear them. Don't think of solving the problem. Don't think of responding. Just hear them.
So in today's world, when we're all on camera all the time, when we're all on, Zooms and Teams and things of that nature, how do you show that you're an active listener the same way that you would in a real life conversation?
Yeah, through technology, it gets a little trickier. I just mandate that people get on camera. I realize there are some reasons why people are off camera. It could be a bad day.
One-off scenario, it's understandable.
Right. Yeah, we pick up so much information from one another through seeing one another, and that helps us with meaning making and understanding. So I like to encourage people, be on camera, ask some questions, don't interrupt. I mean, there's some kind of basic table stakes kind of things, but what we can really do when we're in a Teams chat or something like that, a Teams call, is use the chat function. If you have a question that wouldn't be interrupting them, but maybe they'll respond to it. And there's a lot of different modalities that we can communicate, but we have to pay extra special attention when we're on screen.
Right, like the hand raise or all those little things like that.
Yep.
I think too, it makes it that when we are in person, it is so much more important that we use our active listening skills at such a higher rate because you don't get that in-person time as often. So you need to lean into it. So to put ourselves in the shoes of, event planning, and when we're having those initial conversations about what do we want this event to look like and how do we see this event going and what are the goals and objectives we're trying to accomplish in the very beginning stages of planning an event, listening can really make or break our ability to plan a successful event.
For sure. And I'm sure that your event planners have had the experience where someone doesn't listen and all of a sudden their spidey sense goes up and they're like, we're going to miss some stuff with this event because we really haven't exchanged the information that we need to exchange. And the other side of it is some people are conscious that they do this and some are unconscious. Most are unconscious. They don't even realize. So sometimes what I'll need to do is just simply say, hey, can I finish my point? Or whatever it might be. And for some people, that's a little challenging to do, but you've got to have the meaning making going with the active listening.
And I think to take this even further, being where we are kind of the orchestrators of these events, and we need to lean on so many partner vendors to bring the events to life, how we listen into the first intake of how this event should be, and then push that back out to the next set of people that are going to be supporting the event is crucial.
It is.
So if we haven't listened right on the first conversation, how are we ever going to execute right when that conversation has to happen 3 more times in 3 different ways to get this couch to show up at the event?
It's well said because, growing up, we played the telephone game. Like I whisper something and then you whisper it around the circle, and that actually ends up being something different all the way around. It's exactly what you're describing, where a lot of people really struggle with that. One tool that I would toss out to the event planners is try and come up with a shared understanding on everything. I have a little acronym that I call YUMATSU. Your understanding and my understanding is the same understanding. If you can do that along each of the stages, effective listening will pay dividends because things just don't go sideways when you do that well.
I have a client I work with quite regularly, and they have a very big team, and each person on the team has a different style of communication. And what I found is really effective is, it's so important to have the conversation, right? We can email all day and not get across what we needed to get across until we have the conversation about what do you want out of this event. We have that conversation. I always follow up with an email of, this is what I think we just talked about.
Yep.
And this is the deliverables that we promised, right? So let's just level set within a few hours of that conversation that we're still heading in the right direction. Because I might have heard something that we maybe went back and forth on a few times, and where did we really land? And it could have been a slightly off, even just as simple as, I think you need it by next Friday. And you said, no, I need it Monday. I'm presenting it next Friday and I need time to review, or whatever those little things are. I mean, that's a big thing in our world.
It's a best practice because they may have fumbled what they meant to say, and I may not have heard it in the way that they meant it. So recapping it to say, do we agree on these things? Do you have any other questions? Do you want to have some elaboration or nuance on that? Can be really helpful. And to your point, the live conversation is always important. We lose so much meaning through text and email. Asynchronous communication is our enemy in doing really good, effective communication.
And, you've said something before too about how, emotions come out in written communication versus in live communication. Dive a little bit deeper for me into sort of the why behind, different scenarios and where that real conversation can make or break the ability for you to get over a conflict or get through a conflict.
I think most of us, Cara, have this experience that we've had that's a negative experience. Someone was emotional, maybe it was us, and we said something that we shouldn't have, or it was in a tone that we didn't want. Like, we can all think of the bad examples. What I recommend for people, if it's starting to get emotional, for sure, take it off of text or Teams chat or any other kind of thing like that, and make sure you're focused in on the live conversation. The other thing is, emotional regulation is a key attribute of a leader. So it's, am I aware that I have the emotion? Yeah, I'm really ticked off right now. And then how do I regulate that? I may need to breathe. I may need to say, Cara, I'm just really put out by what was just said in this meeting. I need to take a little break, and I'll come back when I'm re-regulated. That's okay to do because people get emotional and these things are important. And when they're stressed, the emotions go higher. So of course you're going to have the emotional content in there.
Right. And if it's a high stakes, if it's a pressure situation, and, I can even think back to a recent time where I was sitting in a meeting and somebody literally threw their hands up in frustration. And I sat there and thought to myself, that is a moment they didn't need to have. They really didn't need to have that moment. That showed me a different side of them. And I wasn't able to go into the next portion of the meeting without thinking about how they were already heightened. And it triggered how I was going to deliver information moving forward. And it triggered how they delivered the next pieces of information, to the point where I said, I think we should regroup in a couple of days.
Which is really a good call on your part. And yeah, people, sometimes they're aware that they're doing that and sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But it affected you. So something your listeners should know is emotions are contagious. Research has proven this out. So I can infect you with whatever emotion that I have, and likewise, same to you. So when we are together, we have to be mindful of that. What am I putting out with you?
This episode is brought to you by Cohera. One of the hardest things about destination events is that you're only as good as the relationships you have on the ground. Cohera has spent years building those relationships with venues, vendors, and local partners across the country, so you don't have to. Full-service destination management, national scale, people who know the market. That's Cohera. Learn more at meetcohera.com.
So being, high pressure on-site at an event, that vendor didn't show up, or that, band said something off-putting to, through the microphone, right? Like, there's so many little things that can drive a big reaction. How do we curb those reactions, or what are some, tips or tricks that you could recommend when you're on-site at an event and it just isn't going quite as perfect as you planned? But candidly, maybe the audience and the attendees don't even know it.
Right.
But how you react, they might know.
Yeah, managing our reactions is one of the top attributes of an emotionally intelligent person. So I can recognize the emotion. I'm really angry about this, or I'm really frustrated, whatever it is. But how I display that, here are some hacks that I use. Sometimes I'll just count to 10. Sometimes I'll just do some deep breathing that allow me to re-regulate. Sometimes it's literally a spin around the block, come back, if that's available. But when you're in a meeting, obviously you can't go and do that. So what I like to do is, I know this sounds really crazy, but a famous author said, make sure you're touching your fingers together to stay in your body.
Oh.
Because what happens is when we've got the emotions, we're kind of all over the place. We want to get back into the present moment, into our bodies. Our emotions are telling us stuff. It's data. So we don't have to be hijacked by them. A lot of people get hijacked, but it's simply data like, oh, wow, that was really insensitive of that person. And I do that processing of, okay, do I want to say something? Don't I? But any pause you can give yourself is going to be beneficial. The other hack that I like to use is perspective taking, which is, and a lot of people will say this, hey, we're not doing brain surgery, or we're not flying a plane here. And it's amazing how that can cause certain people to regulate their emotions like, okay, this is a much smaller deal than we are making it to be, which is always helpful.
Do you think that people can take that almost too far, though, and say, oh, I'm just going to brush it under the rug, never really deal with it, and then you're going to wonder why, hey, we did all that wonderful furniture for your event last year, and now you're even called us again, but we never had the conversation about why, because they maybe brushed under the rug and didn't acknowledge the conflict either.
You're hitting on something that's really important, and it goes into a concept called conflict debt.
Okay.
So if we have unresolved conflict, there's like a ledger of liability that we have, and it affects our trust, it affects our relationship, and if that keeps getting repeated, the conflict debt keeps going up to where we're just not speaking the same language, we don't connect with one another, and that's when you get bad results.
So what do you recommend, I guess, to make sure that you deliver some sort of feedback, the right feedback that actually drives us all forward?
Yep. There are so many different feedback models. I have friends that are authors on feedback models.
Okay.
And the way I would probably distill it down is it's really two things. Make sure you get the point across and that it's understood. And secondly, do it with heart. Kim Scott wrote a book called Radical Candor, where it's, I'm telling you the truth as I see it, but I'm saying it in a way that you know that I care about you. And sometimes we have to do those mental gymnastics in our own mind. What if I don't care about that person? What if I have to do my own work
right now
before I go and talk to them? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. And I think part of that is about trust. And that's something that
100%.
We've talked about before too. And how do you make sure that what you're doing shows that you've built trust and you move forward in a more trustful way than maybe before that conflict or before that issue arose? Can you talk a little bit about kind of building trust and how trust is earned and the dynamics there?
Yeah, trust is essential to all team functioning. I could say that trust is important, especially in marriages, in parenting, all these kind of things. Well, what builds trust and what destroys trust? If you go to Covey, make deposits in the trust bank account. That's one way that we do it. People have different views of trust, though. Some people will say, Cara, I think you're good. I trust you. You go and make it happen, but I haven't given you any direction. And maybe you do something that I didn't expect. Okay, well, does that breach the trust? There are others who are like, I can't trust you as far as I can throw you. So you're going to prove out your trust to me every time you act in accordance with what you said you're going to do and what I was asking you to do. And that's the way they build trust. So all of us are on a different continuum. There's like a different DNA of trust for each person. See if you can ask people. I've asked people before, how do you define trust? What does a trusting relationship look like? When are you trustworthy? And just see what they say, because if we can explore that and have a good open conversation about it, the chance of us building a trusting relationship goes way up.
That's so interesting because as an event professional and in the events industry, we are the trusted partner. And people select their event planning partner based on emotion and based on trust. And if we don't ask the question of what does trust even mean to you, how are we going to make sure that we can align from a trust perspective?
It's a great point. Yep.
So I never really candidly thought to ask that question, but I'm always looking to get that answer without, without going through too many hoops. Because I think the other part of it is for us in events, especially at Cohera, where we have, so many destinations and we're trying to create a consistent experience as much as possible in all destinations for all types of events, for all types of clients. If we don't have a very open conversation, we can lose trust like this because of one piece of furniture that didn't deliver on time. We have so many moments to lose trust and so few moments to gain trust. So thinking about that, as event professionals, how do you recommend people spend more time or focus more energy on the trust building moments and a little less emphasis on the trust losing moments so that we can all drive forward more often instead of always feeling like 2 steps forward, 1 step back?
Yeah, it's a really good question. A really good question, because a lot of people have different orientations to how they learn. Like, I've learned more from my mistakes than I have my successes. I can tell you some of your seasoned event planners, they know when they have something that's screwed up and they learn that lesson and never do it again, right? So experience
100%.
teaches us a lot. But the idea with trust is we want to lean into the relationship and see where we have connections. Asking the question that we don't have an answer to, not coming in hot, with whatever the topic is. Recognize their people. Empathy is absolutely critical in building trust. Like, can I put myself in their shoes with what they're dealing with? I think your event planners probably are doing that a lot and really well all the time. It's just a key thing to do. So the reminder of everything starts with trust. That'll allow us to work through conflict. That allows us to get to commitment, accountability, and results. It all starts there. So I want to make those deposits, and I for sure don't want to do the withdrawals, and I want to amplify your point. You can lose trust in a second. It's weird that way. It takes forever to build up, and you can lose it in just a moment.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
It is.
I'm not going to lie.
It's a re-emphasis of, okay, if I put my orientation on building trust here with intention, it's just going to go far better. Some people just don't even think about, well, what does trust mean to you? But gosh, when we have trust, we can talk candidly.
Correct.
We can actually be more productive. We can cut to the chase. All that happens when we have really good trust.
And might I also add that possibly you don't lose the trust as easy when the trust is a little bit stronger?
Well said. Yeah. You get the benefit of the doubt. That's the way that I look at it, is if we have a bank account of trust, if something goes sideways, it's like, well, you didn't try to do that.
Pulling a little bit out of the account, but we're not losing the whole account altogether.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's a good way to think about it. I think that from a leadership perspective and from an event planning perspective, you provide a lot of really great resources, but you've attended a lot of events. You've been a part of leadership teams that, had a lot of meetings. Being that we are event planner confessions, I do have to ask, is there any event confession you can think of a crazy story that's ever happened at an event?
I did think of one, Cara.
Oh, good.
So I have 2 examples.
Oh,
one
even
is,
better.
I was responsible in my last company for retaining keynote speakers, and I wasn't an event planner. I wished I would have had your skills or your company's skills. All that aside, we had this guy who was a revered sports coach in this particular geography, and we had him do a keynote, and he went on and on and on and on. And you would never disrespect this guy, but somebody had to pull it. And eventually he ran out of steam. But all the feedback that I got was, why didn't someone step in and intervene? Yep, there was that one. My other one was, we laid out the script, we laid out all the talking points, and they riffed. And do you understand how many people put in emphasis into what we wanted to emphasize, what we wanted to take people away from?
How many pre-planning calls we had and all the listening
all of the above.
That was supposed to go into it all, right?
All of the above. And you just blew all that off and you said whatever you're going to say. Ugh, nightmare.
Yeah.
I just feel weird when I even think about that, because you get this bodily reaction like, oh my gosh, is this really happening?
It's so true. I can't think of the number of times that we talk about minute by minute how these events are going to go, and then one person goes off script and your whole waterfall effect happens and a ripple.
All the time.
Wow, I don't envy being you on that day in those in those events, and probably having to hear the the havoc of not only
you
the
re-traumatized
attendees,
me
but
here, Cara.
yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring that back, but it's important because at the end of the day, we've all been through crazy event stories, and from the speaker side of things, I think it's a really interesting perspective. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
we really appreciate it.
thank you for having me. This is a blast. Thank you.
If you're getting value out of this conversation, the best thing you can do is hit subscribe. Event Planner Confessions, powered by Cohera, drops new episodes every other week with the people, ideas, and activations shaping the future of this industry. And if you want to see what Cohera is actually building behind the scenes, head to meetcohera.com. We'll see you on the next one.